Hello, friends, and welcome back. We are here this time to discuss Frailty, the 19. Geez, I just had the date up. 2001 movie. I was surprised that it was directed by Bill Paxton, but I'm sure we'll get into that. But then before that, Anthony, will you give us an introduction?
Hello, yes. I'm Anthony Self. I have written a couple of books. One of them is called Birthday Treat, a dystopian fiction about a futuristic totalitarian UK that is sort of part Purge, part Running Man, part 1984, and then also a horror anthology called Catbox. And I also do some indie gaming playthroughs on my YouTube channel, Horrible.
Which just hit, I think, about a month ago, 1,000 subscribers.
Yeah, got that milestone. Got that under the belt now with 1,000 subscribers. So thank you all to everyone who's been watching, and I hope to entertain you with more indie horror games.
Yeah, definitely. It's a big accomplishment to get 1,000.
Yeah.
And also Birthday Treat is also part hilarious. It's also very funny. So.
There's a lot of, like, I kind of call it the kind of British humor. It's dark, a little bit macabre, but also kind of tongue in cheek a little bit. So
yeah, pretty good stuff. Yeah, it's very fun. It's my kind of humor, so definitely.
yeah. Tickle that dark, funny bone.
Yes, it does. Yes, indeed. So Frailty, it's one of the movies that I think the end can, on a rewatch, I caught some things that I didn't catch the first time. There were some tells that I didn't catch the first time, but it is one that has one of those endings that are memorable.
Definitely. I think it's one of those type of films, because I'd seen it years ago, and for this discussion, I kind of rewatched it last night, and it was really one of those weird things. It was like when I originally watched it, I remember being like thinking it was. I mean, it's a great film. I'm just going to get that out of the gate. It's a really good film. Maybe it's kind of it does have that kind of late 90s, early 2000s aesthetic feel to it. If you know what I mean, like that kind of There was a kind of whole run of like thriller films that have the same. I don't know what it is. The same sort of sensibilities in terms of, like, you know, the kind of the cinematography, the pacing, stuff like that. But I'd forgotten quite a lot about it. I remember the general consensus of what the film was about. You know, Bill Paxton's father figure being told by God essentially that, you know, to kill demons in human form, and he embroils his two young children into this. There's a lot of themes at play, nature versus nurture, you know, what makes someone feel that they've been spoken to by God, you know, the dynamic of the family, there's a lot of stuff. But yeah, the third act, I remember it came back to me when I was watching it, and I think it's quite a divisive sort of ending, because I think it's either... It's almost like the first part of it is kind of like Usual Suspects, in that Matthew McConaughey, who plays an older version of the child of Bill Paxton, is retelling this to an FBI agent played by Powers Booth, and he basically it's basically a flashback film. So there's the first segment is when he, you know, just basically walks into the FBI building. Turns around to Powers Booth and says, what's the killer's name again? It's like the Hand of God or something like that. Yeah. The hand. He basically proclaims that he knows who the Hand of God killer is. Powers Booth is a bit skeptical at first, much like in The Usual Suspects, and then as the story goes on, we have flashbacks back to is it the sort of late 70s, I think? Around that era, yeah. And it's then Matthew McConaughey and his brother, and it's mainly from his POV. Of how his father basically wakes them up one night and tells them that, you know, God has chosen him to be the instrument of, I don't know what you're going to call it, like
the end of the world.
The end of the world, yeah. He has to kill, like, was it, does he, I can't remember if he says there's a certain amount of people that he needs to or demons. It's not people, it's demons that he's killing. And so therefore it's not actually murder, it's doing the acting as God's tool, as God's right hand in that respect. But yeah, I think that the third act is, it has to go a certain way, doesn't it? But we'll get to that. That's just yeah. But it just, well, the whole point is, it reminded me how much I didn't remember, but I hadn't seen it for years. So yeah, it was. There was a lot that I came back to me then as I was watching it. How did you think about the actual film in its kind of entirety?
I think I saw this in the theater when it came out. I remember seeing it in the theater, and I'd forgotten a lot. And the basics I remembered, but there was a few, details that I forgot. And I was surprised Bill Paxton directed it. It did have that feel, though, like late 90s, early 2000 feel. It did have kind of like that, just the feel, the cinematography and the music and the way that the camera moved and the shots and the dialogue. It all felt a little, I don't want to say dated in a bad way, but it's of the time.
Yeah.
And looking back now, it's easy to kind of criticize it or, pick at it. But, I think it's fine. But it does feel a little bit, I don't want to say amateurish. It does, because I think it's Bill Paxton's first directing gig. His
directorial debut.
Yeah. And Bill Paxton, he's one of those actors that everyone loves. Bill Paxton. I don't think he's all that good. I don't think he's all that great.
Steve!
He's okay. I mean, he's
Hicks.
He's Hicks. He's not Hicks. He's Hudson.
In Aliens, yeah.
Yeah. So that's kind of him. And he's in Tombstone, and there's a few. He has very, very memorable roles. But when you get down to the nitty gritty, I don't know that he's fine. He's not bad, but
I know what you mean. Like Bill Paxton, God rest his soul. Bill Paxton is Bill Paxton, I think, when he's acting. Like, if that's what you mean in terms of the term of like range, I doubt he, would ever win like an Oscar in that respect. But he is Bill motherfucking Paxton. Like I would have killed to have been, to work, to have any kind of working alongside or, being an actor at that time sort of thing, to have that opportunity. He just seems like a lot of fun. He just, I know what you're saying. It is, rewatched the original Twisters again from the new film, Twister, following the new recently released Twisters. And it's just like, you could just tell like any kind of film shoot that he's on. If I was an actor and he was my co-star, I'd just be like, I know I'm going to have a good time. We're going to have a rip roaring good time on this one. And this is a more, I say, leveled approach. It's always, you always find films when you have directors who are directing themselves when they are an actor on screen and whatnot, that can sometimes shine through. But on this one, I think this is one of Bill Paxton's most grounded performances. It's a hard task because he's basically playing a person who is saying that he's been visited by God. He's a single father. He's trying to bring up his two sons, and he's a mechanic. He's got that kind of blue-collared sort of like working class vibe going on. And, imagine one day your father just coming and busting into your room and saying like, children, I've been told by God that I have to get 3 items that will, it's mad, it's crazy. But he plays it with such a nuanced way. He plays it very empathetically. It would be easy to kind of like just label this guy a psycho killer. And, maybe like an abusive father in that respect. But he's not an abusive father at all. Like, we have the older son whose name, Fenton, is it? Yeah. So you have Fenton and Adam, and you have the older brother Fenton, who is of that age where And this is another thing that I really loved about the film as well, because you have the two brothers. I don't think it actually tells you how old they are, but we're meant to, I think it's implied that the oldest one is maybe like 11 or 12, and the younger one is maybe 7 or 8. And you have that thing where the younger brother, Adam, like obviously is still in that stage of adoring his father. Like his father is God to him. And I really like the kind of the way they play this out, because Fenton is at that age where he's actually questioning his father now. As you know, I think, you know, we go, all of us, I think, go to that through that stage where you become a teenager, and therefore your parents are no longer your gods. You know, your parents are, and you know, you have some teenagers that get surly and have their emo phase and rebel, and then you have other kids that are just like, you know, so there's a great dynamic at play here where you have Fenton as the older son who is starting to question things about his father, but then you have this authoritative figure. You have your father who's telling you what to do. So there's a lot of stuff going on. Then you have the younger brother Adam, who's just blindly following his father, what his father says, and being caught up in all this. And then you kind of have to think to yourself, like, you know, does this younger brother actually believe what his father's telling him, or is he just going along for the ride because that's what you do when your parents tell you to do something? You do it. You know, so I found that really interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, I did like when Adam wrote down a list that he had been given, and I had a schoolyard bully and some other people he didn't like.
Yeah, and once again, like, yeah, sorry, go on, Steve. Yeah.
No, go ahead.
No, I was going to say that's another brilliant example there, because Bill Paxton's character is obviously like, no, son, you know, did God tell you this, or are you just upset with this guy, sort of thing? And the young brother's like, and I suppose that's the kind of the horror in this film. It's not a gory film. It's not a, you know, all the kind of scenes that you see where Bill Paxton has his axe and everything. You don't see people being chopped up. It all happens. All the murders kind of, I think majority of the murders happen off screen. It's the implied, like, wow, you know, when you walking down the street sort of thing and you see someone twerking and tweaking in front of you sort of thing, and you're like, this guy's clearly not well in the head. What would they do? It's that kind of horror, I think, on this. I think this would be more of a kind of thriller. I would label this film more as a thriller than a horror or anything like that. But it is that implied thing of, you know, the religion aspect as well. It would be interesting to kind of, I'm not particularly religious myself, but it would be sort of interesting to kind of see someone who is maybe very devout in their faith, to kind of see how they perceive this film and how it's treating those type of things, because like obviously he's hearing God, and we see a scene where he's, you know, he's working under a car, and he actually sees this yeah. I smite you godlike figure coming down with a fiery sword. Yeah, but another thing that I found interesting as well, like you mentioned before, Steve, that there are things that you were picking up in the sort of this rewatch, and there was one thing in particular that I actually thought, oh, that's interesting, because they don't actually say anything about it. It's a photograph. It's when towards the start of the film, in when Bill Paxton's figure is, I think he's in bed, and the shot just kind of pans across, and you see like a photo of like a helicopter and maybe some soldiers, and you do think, okay, so the timing could be he could be Vietnam. This could be a form of PTSD, perhaps. Maybe this is a form of trauma that he's experienced, but nothing's actually ever said, I don't think, that he was in a war or anything like that. It's just a lingering little shot that I just thought, you know what, that throws a bit more perspective now into terms of, is this real, or is this sort of Jacob's Ladder sort of style thing going on? So I thought that was really interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it does a few things. When Adam does bring in the list, and his dad, did God really give this to you? And you start to wonder if Adam's going along because he believes, or because he's trying to please his father. The 3 items that he gets, the dad is sympathetic, but when he brings in the pipe and he unravels it just looks, that's the weapon. That's so as a viewer, we're thinking this can't be. I mean, could you think you're going to receive 3 weapons or 3 items? You're thinking like a sword or something, like, you know, something that has some
has
Or
some
good
kind of
visual appeal.
biblical sort
Yeah.
of imagery attached to it. But once again, it's one of those type of films as well that is, it does have that unreliable narration going throughout. There's certain segments, for example, when pardon me, when he sees his first item. It's like this sunlight beaming down on this barn, and then he goes to visit. He goes to the barn, and then he sees the axe, the Otis axe, and then the gloves. I can't remember whether the gloves. Where did he see the gloves? Or
They were next to. I think they were next to the axe.
oh, were they? Okay, yeah. And then finally, yeah, the kind of pipe. They are, strange items. But hey, if you're going to be doing demon slaying, what better than an axe,
Yeah, I think it's to place doubt in our heads as a viewer, just to say this guy's losing his mind. Like there's no way this is real. But while you were watching, do you remember the first time you watched it? If you ever thought maybe this is real, or did you go back and forth, or did you think that it was just him going insane?
There were on my I'm trying to remember when I first, because I can't remember when I first watched it, or where it could have been the theater as well, or it could have been just like a DVD type thing. But I think there's a point in the film. So another thing. So Bill Paxton, the first victim or the first demon, depending on where you're sitting on the fence, or whether you believe him or not, is a woman, right? She's a nurse, and he brings her into the shed and basically says that she's been killing people and like looting their cash and whatnot, and when he touches them, when he puts his hand on them, he can see their sins. And I liked the fact that you don't see any kind of like flashes of what they've done. It's all in Paxton's reaction. So at that point, you kind of think to yourself, is he actually seeing these things? Or is it this elaborate performance in front of his two sons? These young, impressionable minds that he's trying to, manipulate. So there's that element to it, which I really liked. But the point, I think, for me was when I was like, okay, maybe there is something more to this, is when I think is it the second demon or victim, or the third, when the younger brother, it could be the first one, I can't remember now off the top of my head, but when he puts down the axe, when he, obviously kills the person, Fenton, the older brother, turns away, and the younger brother and him are going, you see? And there seems to be this like off-camera thing, and that's what I really liked about this, because you don't know. It's always left ambiguous to let the viewer decide, because you see the younger brother like is looking like boggly-eyed and, oh my God, yeah, I see it, Dad, I see it. And once again, it kind of caters into this fact of like, once again, as you're saying, like, is he just trying to like appease and make his father proud of him, so he's lying? Or does he actually see this demon escaping like from the body? Like, there was a lot of that throughout, which I really liked. But then they obviously have to kind of draw a line. And they have to go like, well, the end is the third act. Yeah, obviously goes a bit into that kind of territory. I don't know if you want to talk about that now, or you want to talk about more about themes and stuff like that. So, yeah, so effectively, the whole monologuing diatribe that Matthew McConaughey's character, the older brother now, when he's talking to Powers Booth, the FBI agent, Wesley Doyle, there's a point where it becomes apparent that he is not Fenton. He is actually the younger brother. And it's like a kind of like that's the twist, really, isn't it? That's the whole gotcha kind of moment. Because throughout the whole film, he's been saying that, the film starts off with the Adam brother killing himself, committing suicide. And, that in itself then as well is unreliable narration, because did he? We don't know. Like, did he kill him? La, la, la. Maybe that's a bit of a plot hole. I'm not too sure. But yeah, it turns out that Matthew McConaughey is actually the younger brother all along, and he's been duping Agent Doyle because Agent Doyle, he believes him to be a demon as well. And then the kind of cat is out of the bag when Matthew McConaughey's Adam character touches him, and he finds out that he was the killer of his mother. And it's like, well, okay, there's suspension of disbelief, and then there's maybe this is screwing the pooch a little bit. And Doyle goes, "How did you know?" And he was like, "Well, I believe, and I can sort of see, and all this kind of stuff." And then there's also an element where the VHS, like the tape of his tape is like blurred out and everything like that because God is protecting him. So you kind of think then, okay, so he can actually see demons. He is being protected by God. So this is all true then. This is all, the demons they're real and everything like that. And I think it loses a little bit of credibility because it's explaining that. I think it would have worked better if it was left completely ambiguous. But then once again, it's like, what do you believe? Do you believe this is actually happening? Do you believe the tape was just caught, had some film grain in it or something? You know, the point for me was when Doyle goes, "How did you know?" And it's like, well, because he touched you and he obviously could tell your sins. And then it transpires that Matthew McConaughey is actually a sheriff in this town. There's another sheriff that comes to visit him. He touches him and he goes like, "You're a good man." And it's like, because he can obviously tell people's aura or their pheromones. I don't know, but yeah, how it works. But yeah, it was good, and now obviously it felt like a very kind of Usual Suspects kind of. They needed a kind of twist and everything like that. Apparently, I did read, pardon me, that the script was originally going to be a lot darker. It wasn't going to go down that particular line. But then I think Columbine happened, and that there had to be some changes because obviously reflecting in works of, you know, mass killings and whatnot. So I think we had to, yeah. But yeah, I think it's, you know, upon rewatching it, and because of a lot of stuff that I forgot previously, yeah, I enjoyed it. It hasn't, as you said, like the aesthetics are very late 90s, early 2000s. And in this day and age kind of thing, you can definitely tell it's almost of that kind of like, you know, Rainmaker sort of style, like almost police procedural, but like made for. And obviously, I can imagine this wasn't like a massive budget as well. Matthew McConaughey at that time wasn't in his A-list superstardom status at the time and everything like that. So, yeah, I enjoyed it.
I think did Doyle show up on the list? Is that why he visited him? Because he showed up on the list? And I think his brother was on the list too, right? That's why he finally, because when the dad died, the dad whispered to him that your brother's a demon, but he was waiting until he showed up on the list. So
yeah. Do we actually find out what he whispers to Adam, young Adam, or is it kind of left to?
I don't know if it's ever explicitly said, but I think the dad, at some point, the dad told him your brother's a demon. And because we get hints that the older brother, that God told the dad something about the older brother that the dad did refuse to believe. Like, we're going to prove him wrong. You're going to dig this massive hole, and we're going to prove to God that you're not what he thinks you are. And so we kind of later we find out that God told him he's a demon, basically dooming him, like you're going to have to kill him eventually. So I think that's why. But I'm not sure why the brother waited so long to kill. Why he waited so long to kill the brother? I think it just worked out that way. Or he waited till he was on the list.
Yeah, it's kind of. I think like once again, it kind of goes into that. Like if we assume that, you know, Fenton's name was on the list originally when Bill Paxton had the list, it kind of does make sense. Like later, like throughout the movie, we see, you know, when the young Fenton is back chatting to his dad and basically saying like, you know, what you're doing is wrong, And the dad is like, imagine that. Imagine being a father and like having your son's name on this list, that he's a demon, and he's sort of trying to, coax him through. He basically, there's a point where he imprisons him in the shed for like a week. And it's like, have you learnt your ways now, essentially? Like, so it's kind of brutal on his character as well. Like, what he's going through in terms of, imagine actually getting the voice of God in your head telling you to, do these demons. And once again, another interesting part is when the young Fenton escapes from the shed. He runs away and he kind of goes to the local sheriff of the town they're in and says, like, my dad's killed these people, you got to come. And the sheriff comes back. He brings young Fenton back. And at first he's like, your son's telling tall tales. And, Paxton's character is like going, I know. But then there comes that kind of moment where it's like, can I just check the shed? There's nothing in the shed. But then Paxton has to kill him because, and that's the first time when he's like literally breaking down, because he's like, he doesn't feel like he's killed a demon. He's actually killed a real person. And he's upset, and he's like going, oh, see, now this is what you've made me do. There's remorse there, which is funny because obviously with the other victims / demons, there is no remorse because he feels like he's doing God's work. He feels justified that he's doing this. So I thought that was really interesting, that there is this kind of weird, not justification, if you will, but this sort of code of conduct of, killing the demons as opposed to killing real people.
Destroying demons.
Destroying demons. Destroy them. Smite them. Yeah.
Yeah, I think another thing that this film explores is faith and what blind faith, or I don't know if you can say blind, because he believes he sees the angels and that God talks to him, but how far people are willing to go in the name of faith. Like, you're willing to to go out and kill people, and then force your kids to be accomplices, and then force your kid to dig a hole that you put said demons into, and you trap him for a week with a glass of water a day.
Yeah.
So nearly killing him. So the boundaries that you're willing, or the lines you're willing to cross in the name of faith is,
It is. It's pretty. I mean, once again, as I said, I think this would be, if I was a particularly religious person, if I, went to church every week and, said my prayers, and I think I might be looking at this differently. I think one can be spiritual. It doesn't have to be. You don't have to be religious. You can be spiritual. But yeah, it's a strange one, because I think to myself, have I ever fervently believed in something so much that I would kill? Like, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's a strange concept.
Yeah.
It kind of bakes the noodle a little bit,
Yeah. It does. And I kind of laughed at the effects, the special effects, the whole sequence of the angel comes down, and it looks really goofy. And then I wondered, is that just because of the budget or of the time, or did they deliberately make it look a little bit silly to place doubt in our minds? Like, this can't be real. Like, this guy's insane.
I think it's it is very, you just see descending down with this flaming sword. I think it was meant to be so over the top's not the right word, but so mismatched with everything that we've seen thus far that it sort of pulls you out. And I think that's meant to be the whole point, because like at the time he's underneath a car and there's a lot of sparks, welding sparks and everything flying, and it gives that sense of, flames and whatnot. And then he sees this thing. So yeah, it's kind of out there, but I think it has to be, because in order, like, if you just saw a random guy, like, say, walk in and go hi, and he had like a halo behind him or something like that, it wouldn't be as effective, I don't think. I mean, I enjoyed it. I like the whole segment with the angel or the God himself or whatever it might be, sort of descending down upon Bill Paxton as he's working on a, transmission or exhaust pipe of a pickup truck or something like that. Yeah, it's yeah. I don't know if something like that happened to me. I think the first thing I'd be doing is going to the doctors, obviously. Saying like, "Oh, I'm seeing things. I'm seeing these things." But once again, it goes back to the faith, doesn't it? It goes back to what you believe in.
Another thing that I think I didn't notice the first time, but there is a picture of their mom on the kids' beds. Between the beds, there's a picture of their mom that had died. So it also makes you wonder, is the dad suffering? Is he overwhelmed with grief and loss? Because he seems fine on the surface. So what would drive him to do something like this? Is it because of the grief he feels from losing his partner and kind of just, we're going to go see your mom and let's kill some demons on the way down? I mean,
it's interesting because I could be wrong. It might have been like a throwaway comment that I just missed. I'm not sure, but do we actually from the beginning of the film we don't actually know? We know she's not there. She's not in the picture, and I believe there is a line of something of like she died. But I in my head, I don't know why I was thinking that it was due to like an illness. I could be completely wrong, but I don't remember there being anything about saying that she was stabbed or she was murdered or anything like that until like the end part, and it's like that just comes out of nowhere. I thought a little bit. So it would have been interesting if, like, as you said, like, because if he's a single father, he's trying to raise two boys, working at a garage and all this kind of stuff. And if if we'd have found out maybe at the beginning that the mother had been slain by an unknown person, then I think that would have added to the mix of everything that's going on, because then you'd be a bit more like, yeah, as you said, like, is he doing this because he's mentally breaking down, and is it because of the fact that he's maybe trying to, I don't know, did he kill her, sort of thing, and like this is like what he's always been like? Yeah, so there's a lot of added dynamics that are thrown in the mix, but we don't notice, from my perception anyway, of it. There could have been a line or something, as I said, that I just didn't pick up on. But yeah, we don't know until the end that Doyle was actually the mother's killer. Yeah.
Well, Doyle killed his mom, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, there's lots of ambiguity in this one. Lots of things.
I love
left
a film
to
with
imagination.
I love ambiguous films, and I love films that make you question. Like, I'm one of those kind of people. If I'm watching a thriller or a mystery, I'm always trying to guess, what's happening coming down the line, what's over the hill, and I like being thrown a curveball. I like being thrown a kind of something that logistically and logically makes sense, and I go, oh, all right, yeah, I can understand that. That makes sense to me. But then other times, if you have like, Deus Ex Machinas, or you have like third act U-turn things that are completely out of, you're like, it's a bit of a cop out or a bit of a cheap kind of way going out, sort of thing. And to me, I remembered, and I don't know, once again, this is rewatching it. I was watching it with my partner, and she hadn't seen it before. So it wasn't until like halfway of the film, and then it clicked with me. Oh yeah, I remember now that Matthew McConaughey is actually the younger brother. He's not the older brother. And I think before the reveal happens, she did sort of ask me like, is there something? Is he's not going to be the? And I don't know if that's because of the fact that we've had so many films since then, since the late 2000s, that, like The Sixth Sense and other kind of gotcha sort of twisty ones. And there's always, films since the dawn of time have always had like twists and turns in them, and, last act reveals. But yeah, I think you can kind of telegraph this one coming. Do you remember how? Did you kind of see it coming before you knew it was going to happen, or was this like a complete surprise to you when you first saw it?
On the initial watch, I don't think I picked up on the clues. I was more focused on the dad and his what I thought was his descent into madness.
Yeah.
But yeah, on the second watch, it was when he talks about, I promised I would bury him here, and then we have the flashback about the older brother Fenton saying, when I die, I promise you bury me here,
In the
so that we
rose
know.
garden.
Yeah, in the rose garden. So yeah, I think I didn't really catch it the first time, but like you said, I think the more movies you watch, the more likely you are to pick up on those sort of things.
Yeah. It's an interesting one, though. But, I mean, the thing is as well, like, as soon as you get Powers Booth in any role, 95% of the time, he's going to be a villain. So it's one of those type of things where, you see him, even if he's playing an FBI, I don't know if he's like the director or he's like an FBI just agent in this respect, but I think he's just an agent. But like, whenever you have Powers Booth, you just know he's going to be a villain. There are certain actors that just, that deep gravelly voice, the way he holds himself. Once again, like, with Tombstone, same thing, really. It's that kind of thing of certain actors are just villains. They just have that villainous look. So,
yeah, I think he definitely has a presence. I think his facial expressions, he has that smile that's just he's about to tie somebody to some railroad tracks.
Yeah,
he has that look.
Definitely. Yeah.
So, but I still wondered at the end, even on a rewatch, is this really happening, or is this just him being corrupted by his dad, and he's just continuing? And because I guess you could call the confirmation the video at the end. The faces are blurred, and the dad tells them God will make us invisible. He'll protect us. So was it just chance? Or is this just a small town sheriff who has this conspiracy going? His wife or his girlfriend or whatever it is the secretary for the police station who's covering for him. Is this just somebody going about and believing that he's destroying demons? Or I don't know, I guess the video, could be confirmation that it's real. And I guess that's the funner. I don't know. I guess it depends on your outlook. I mean, I want it to be I don't know if you say it's a happier ending because he's getting rid of demons, but the other side is he's killing innocent people. So.
Well, that's it. Yeah, I mean, it depends on how you look at it, because obviously when they go back to the who he at the time believes is Adam's residence, where there's loads of graves. There are loads of shallow graves in the rose garden. So, and he's obviously been doing this since. I mean, if he was like 10 when his father was bringing people back into the shed to kill them, and he's now meant to be in his like mid-30s or whatever. So he's been doing this for a long time. And yeah, as he said, like, it depends on which side of the fence you sit on. If you believe him to be this devout, person who's killing demons, then, hey, more power to you, sort of thing. If you think he's just a serial killer, essentially, then yeah, it's a bit more. I think I like the video thing. Like, it's blurred out, and it's like it's conceivable that maybe there was some kind of malfunction with the security camera, or if they made out a little bit more along those lines, and instead of Doyle saying like, "How did you know?" Like, I think it would have been better if the third act was he touches him, and you have the same thing that Paxton's character had, like, he recoils or something like that, and then he says something along like. I think if it's always left to the viewer to kind of decide for themselves, this I think is trying to shoehorn the fact that they are actual demons, and he is actually doing the good work of the Lord, sort of thing, and it works better as a happy Hollywood ending that way, right? But if they did make it more ambiguous, like as you said, like there are a few little things that maybe didn't work out. If Doyle didn't have to say like, "How did you know?" It could have. Yeah. I think that would have made a better ending. because then it would have truly been like, that shot where he shakes the sheriff's hand at the end and goes, "You're a good man," and then he walks away. You could have had that play out so many different ways. You could have had him just like lingering shot as he watches the sheriff walk off, and you still don't know like if he is a serial killer who's just been nurtured because of his ill father. That would have been more interesting. But I think they are trying to go with the whole, he is a demon killer and he's doing the good work of the Lord. So we can give him a whole pass on this, in that respect.
Yeah. So at the very beginning, when he's sitting in the office waiting for Doyle, he is holding the picture of Doyle and his mom.
Yes.
Yeah. So he's kind of already. So I think he's putting it together, right? Because on the car ride over, he does ask him about his mom and did they ever find the killer? And Doyle does give a look like, oh no, they never found him.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. No, it's an interesting one. Yeah.
Only in a small town, though, could you pull this kind of shit off.
Oh, of course. Yeah. If they remade that now, it'd be like, oh god, imagine with all the GPS on the phones and the. But then saying that, then God makes them invisible, So because there's that part, when they basically Paxton tackles the guy into the van. And he's like, well, we're out in the middle of the night. We're in, during the day. And it's like, oh, God will make everyone blind.
Don't worry about it.
Yeah. I wish I had that kind of confidence in life. I'll just be like, go into a bank and rob a bank. God will make them all blind. They won't see me as I run off with this big, hefty bag of cash.
God will protect me. I'm fine. Don't worry about it.
Demon slaying. And that would be something to put on your resume as well, right? Demon Slayer.
Stands
see
out.
that you haven't been, why is this the 3-year period that you haven't been working? Oh, Demon Slayer. It's fine.
I was destroying demons, doing God's work,
Yeah.
No big deal.
Yeah. It's all good.
Even
so
though this is... sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, so what would you rate this film, like if you had to give it an out of 10, Steve?
Yeesh. I don't know. Pushing maybe an 8. Yeah, 7 or 8 for sure. I think it's 7 or above. So I'll say 8 because I think it's an intelligent, fun, good ending, lots of ambiguity. It is of its time. But I don't think you should hold that against it.
No, not at all.
Yeah. So it's up there. What about you?
I would give it a solid 7. I said, like, I really enjoyed. It's once again, it's that weird thing though, because I think I'm probably watching this through more rose tinted glasses because of the fact that Bill Paxton passed away, and I can watch that man in anything, even Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. I can watch him in that, but but it's one of those things where I think he gives a very grounded performance. He's playing a father who we're probably not meant to feel sympathy for, or we're not meant to, but he gives, I don't know what it is. Like, he's just got this really vulnerable, real edge to it sort of thing, that I really, really like. And even the young actors that are playing the young Adam and Fenton as well, like, they do a good job. Watch a lot of films back in that era, in that sort of time where, you either have like Corey Feldman, sort of that young teenage star type thing breaking out, like, but these two boys are really selling it in terms of just the realness of it, because as I said, once again, you have this almost maybe 12-year-old boy who's questioning his father, and that's always going on. Like I said, like when he sort of punishes him by digging a massive dirt hole that will become the kind of cellar for this shed, and then locking him, imprisoning him for like, he doesn't want to do it, but he's not an abusive father. He loves his children, but he's following God's instructions. So, yeah.
Even this is what 2001. I kept thinking while I was watching it, you won't see a movie like this in theaters. It's changed a lot. I think maybe streaming, you'd see a movie like this. You'd see it on a streaming service somewhere. So then I wondered, is that a good thing or a bad thing?
It's interesting. The kind of state of films that we're in at the moment. The whole at the current moment in time. I don't know if you've Francis Ford Coppola's Megalopolis. He's basically come out, and at the start of the new trailer that's come out now is like having all these people basically say his past films were all bad, like Apocalypse Now was really bad and all this kind of stuff, and it's that trying to subvert the expectations by I'm trying to think of something, like a recent film or a modern film that's done something similar like this. I think maybe we've become so desensitized by the amount of real life sort of documentaries that you get on Netflix, any kind of like crime thing that is actually about, and this was apparently based on a real story. Yeah, about a father. Let me just try and find the yeah, loosely based on the case of American serial killer Joseph Callinger, who murdered 3 people and tortured the 4 families. He committed these crimes with his 13-year-old son Michael between 1974 and 1975 in New Jersey. Callinger pleaded insanity, claiming God had told him to kill. So yeah, I mean, I can't really think off the top of my head of any similar film. There probably is one. I'm just missing it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I it would be good because I mean, like we're so encumbered by safe films these days. AAA films with money in the bank. If you had like a kind of down to grassroots, doesn't have to be particularly. The budget doesn't have to be particularly massive. It doesn't have to. It just has like these themes that are quite prevalent even in today's society. Religion is something that's never going to go out of fashion in that respect. Yeah, it would be interesting to kind of see, as you said, like I think they could remake this. And I abhor myself for saying that because remakes, reboots are not something you should do. But if they did remake this, I wonder what the slant would be. I would make it more ambiguous in that respect of you never know, even until like the final frame of the film, you never know whether, the son is just taking on his father's brainwashing or taking on his power from God. Because that's another thing as well. If Bill Paxton is meant to be the guy who hears the voice of God and is conducting all these things, how does that power transfer to the son?
Well, I think when the dad first walks in the room, he tells him, "We've been chosen." Yeah. So maybe the whole family's been chosen, not just him.
It's a bit coincidental, though, isn't it?
Building an army.
The army of demon slayers.
I do think this can be remade as much as I'm not particularly fond of remakes. This one I think could be remade and revamped a little bit. I think, yeah, I think the theater experience is a lot different now, and then studios aren't taking risks on movies like this. I think streaming services will probably have movies that take different, more chances, and I think the bigger studios want the sure things, and they want like blockbusters, and so it's a very different landscape now than it was then.
Yeah. I mean, I'm just trying to think of like the last, because whenever I kind of think of like thriller, religious sort of thing, I always think of like exorcisms type films. The last one I watched was the one with Russell Crowe, where he played not the Pope's exorcist. There's a more recent one. Where he plays like an actor who they're basically they're redoing The Exorcist. And so Russell Crowe is this actor who basically starts getting possessed, essentially. it's not great. It's not a great film. But like when you kind of like throw religion in, it's usually of that type of ilk, in that kind of sense of good versus evil, usually by demonic possession.
Yeah.
And the person's faith will either outdo the demon or anything like that. But in this one, it is literally that kind of, as you said, like the kind of question of if you believe in a deity or a kind of Christ-like figure who's spoken to you and is saying like these people are demons, like is that whole like I mean you can imagine. I can't think of a recent story, but seen as it was based on the real life thing where the guy pleaded insanity and just said God told him to do it. But isn't that just an easy way out? Like, I could go out tomorrow and just kill like 10 people and just be like, yeah, they were demons. They were goddamn demons. I was doing the Lord's work. Hallelujah.
Yeah.
I'd still be thrown in the jail, but would I get like a minimum security type thing for it? If I plead insanity? But that's, a lot of people now try that, don't they? They try and go for the insanity plea, and it's become so numerous that everyone's like, no, you can't do it. I'm sure there are laws now that prevent people from doing that just for that reason, to try and get off a... I've kind of digressed into like weird...
No, I was thinking about... I think that was very popular there for a while. The whole the devil made me do it, or God made me do it. And I think now people are just like, I'm crazy. I did it. I'm crazy. So it is. I'm not sure that there's many things you can do. I mean, how can you prove that you're crazy? I guess you'd have to be evaluated by someone to determine if you really are crazy or just crazy. So
it's that kind of catch-22 scenario, isn't it?
Yeah.
You can't be. If you label yourself crazy, then you're not crazy, So
and plus, if you claim guilty by insanity, you have to be guilty. I'm guilty instead of trying to. So no, I didn't do anything. Then you can try and get out. But I guess I didn't realize it was based on loosely based on a true story.
Yeah, I think it's kind of loosely based, isn't it? In terms of, I think the most effective thing here is that. It's the children, bringing in the children into his... Whether you believe him to be an actual touched by God person who is doing the Lord's work, or you see him as a mentally unwell person who is doing this. But there's no, like... Imagine like the MO, right? You have serial killers that their MO will usually be of the same... like look at Dharma sort of thing. Look at, these... A lot of the killers of the past... will tend to kind of, in a very kind of roundabout way, stick to what they know. Yeah. He's bringing in, the first one's a nurse. Like you think, why a nurse? Like someone who's helping people, but then the second person, isn't it the is it the guy? I can't remember now off the top of my head. But they're all different people from different backgrounds, and there doesn't seem to be, it's random. It just seems completely random. And he's been given this list of names. Like, you do have to wonder to yourself, like, does he know these people? Or where did he get these names? Like, you don't just go through the yellow pages and just kind of, maybe he did, and that's the whole thing. But it seems like if he was that unstable, and this is in the film, obviously, I'm talking from that, but he's a loving father. Like, he doesn't show any, apart from, imprisoning his child in the barn, but that's because of the fact that I think, as you were saying, like, his name may be on the list, and he wants to kind of rid himself of what he may have to do. So there is that element to it as well, that if he was like an abusive father, then the audience would be like, well, he's clearly not well in the head, but because he's not, like there's moments in the film where he's talking to the eldest brother, Fenton, and it's like very softly, like, he can understand that what he's asking of them to do is, ridiculous, but at the same time, it must be done. I think there's like certain parts where he kind of turns around and goes, it is the will, we have to do this. Like, and of that era as well, I think of like, if it's meant to be in the late 70s and whatnot, different kind of generation as well. Like, of the, when you set your mind to something, you set your mind to something and you do it. Not like these snowflakes these days, that kind of thing. Like that's another element as well. Like, yeah. So there are a lot of interesting concepts at play here. And, I think that you're either going to believe that he is seeing these things or you're not. And now with the ending, to me, it's like, oh, okay, well, they obviously do see demons and, this kind of stuff. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a feel-good ending, I guess, because you know that he's actually killing people that are demons and not just innocent random people. So,
yeah,
it's much. But yeah, if they made it more ambiguous, it would be very dark. But that might be fun to play with. Maybe someday.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of wiggle room that you can make here for, and they do. This is I feel like that there was some kind of like, I don't know, studio interference, or like towards the end they may not have known where they were going to go with it, so they had to go with this kind of ending of oh, Doyle actually killed my mother, and but if that was the case as well, then why didn't they try and kill Doyle a long time ago? Like, why is it being left now until he's grown up now? He's like, what? Yeah, that. Just little things that don't really add up for me in that respect. Because you said, like, there's a lot of people on the list. They've got a lot of killing to do.
Destroying.
Sorry, yes, destroying. Yeah. It's not something you do like you wake up on Monday and you're like, right, got the gonna wake up Monday and Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, gonna get all these people done. Maybe you can.
Yeah.
You have God on your side. You can do anything.
You really can.
I'm sure there's a motivational poster that we can use with Oh
yeah, we can
buddy,
get a
buddy
motivational.
Christ. Get.
You can do it. God will protect you.
Yeah.
Destroy demons. Yeah, it was a good rewatch. It was better than I remembered. I remember it being pretty good, but it was better than I remembered.
What made you pick this as a film to discuss?
I think it might have been Susanna who mentioned it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So.
No, it is. Yeah, it's definitely. I said, like, I'd forgotten more about this film than I remembered, sort of thing. Yeah. So it was actually really interesting to kind of rewatch it, especially with someone who hadn't seen it before, and then was kind of like, sort of going, oh wow, ooh, this is interesting as well. So yeah.
It was a good one. I think. Glad it was. I was happy to rewatch it. It was a good one.
Yeah, I'm just seeing if there's an interesting story about the axe.
Oh,
the Otis axe, which is essentially, when asked why the axe used as the name Otis carved on the handle, Paxton stated that he wanted the axe to have its own personality and to be unique. He found the name in Pasadena when he was there scouting for locations to film. And he met a homeless man and offered to give him some money. The homeless man didn't want charity, so Paxton instead offered to buy the use of the man's name for the movie. And the man's name was obviously Otis.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so bit of IMDb trivia there for you.
Hopefully he compensated the poor guy for using his name.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's why, because the homeless man didn't want charity, so he basically said, like, well, instead of charity, I'm paying you to use your name in the film. So, I mean, he could have given him just $10. We don't know, but that's, it doesn't say how much he paid him, but I imagine it would have been more than $10.
Hopefully, for Otis's sake. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think, this is, I mean, for me, this kind of brings about, it's kind of, it has that kind of 90s mentality, but also at the same time, it's got depths that you don't get in a lot of those type of films as well. I think it's only marred by the kind of third act, gotcha, reveal, twist. I think it could have gone a different way, i.e., not having to. I mean, obviously, I love those type of films where the start of it has someone confessing to a crime, or or going into the police station and talking about what's happening. And this is following that kind of thread. And I always love those kind of like flashbacky films where you'll kind of intercut sometimes back to the main narrative, or the now narrative. In this case, Matthew McConaughey in Powers Booth in The Office. But yeah, I really like those. This was like a kind of genre of things that, as you said, like you don't really get anymore. So it's really refreshing to kind of like see that happen. I'm just once again trying to think of another recent film that had that kind of whole aesthetic where it's flashing back to certain segments of a different time or something like that.
I can't think of anything.
No, not off the top of my head. But yeah, but I think, as I said, like I think that the third act is really up to people to decide whether they are really invested in this one then or not. But yeah, I'd give this a solid 7. Definitely. Do we know, like, if Paxton directed, like, this is his directorial debut? I'm sure he did direct other things, but let's just see. 5 things. Okay. Okay. The Greatest Game Ever Played and Tattoo. Oh, that was a short. The Greatest Game Ever Played. What was that? 2005. Oh, Shirley LaBeouf. In the 1913 US Open, 20-year-old Francis Ouimet played golf against his idol. Not much of a golfer myself, so can't say I've ever seen that one.
Oh, he did direct an episode of Saturday Night Live too.
Yeah. I would say, like, this was yeah, you can tell the budget's not in the heavens for this. It doesn't need to be. It's a character piece, right? It's a character driven piece. So yeah, I think everyone involved put in the effort,
Yeah. It's a good one. Anything else you can think of from this one?
No, I do think this, if you haven't seen this, and we spoiled it for you now, so apologies. maybe put up a spoiler warning at the very beginning of this, Steve. Before we do that. But if you haven't seen, I do recommend it. And it's one of those type of films where I think anyone that you speak to that's watched it will have, as you said, like you said at the very beginning, like picking up little things. Well, I picked up, like, I could be completely wrong when I picked up that whole, like, maybe he was in Vietnam and sort of thing, like war thing. Because once again, there's a lot of things going on behind the scenes, if that makes sense. Even in front of the camera, there's a lot of stuff that the subtext is really good here. And there might be obviously some stuff that's flown over my head. But then if you talk to someone else about it, they'll be like, here's my impression and here's my opinion. And you're like, oh, actually, I didn't think about that. It's one of those type of films. It really is one of those type of films that once you've finished watching it, you'll be talking about it if you're watching it with a group of friends, if you're watching it with a partner, if you're watching it with your dad. Maybe not watch this with your dad if you're two brothers and, he starts saying that he's heard God or something like that, because then you might have to vacate the premises. But no, it definitely is one of those type of films that you will certainly be talking about it after the credits have rolled. And in my opinion, that's always the sign of a really good film, regardless of what the nature is, what the substance is, what the content is. If you're there at the end of it, one of the best things I love doing is when I go to cinema, either with friends or my partner or whatnot, sort of thing, is coming out and then spending, like, maybe having a few drinks and just chatting about it and just dissecting it and just kind of, absorbing it, let it marinate, sort of thing. Yeah, I love that. There's so many films that you can come out of nowadays and just be like, yeah, that was a film.
Yeah, that was fun.
And instantly forget it,
Yeah.
unfortunately. But no, this one is definitely one of the latter ones where you'll come out and you'll be like, was he? Don't know. Oh,
Yeah.
interesting. Yeah.
That was one
What
of
about
those for sure.
yourself?
Sorry?
What about yourself? Like, what are you?
No, I think we pretty much covered everything. But I do agree that I think it's one of those ones that you'll have something to talk about after.
For sure, yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah.
Definitely a good one to discuss because there's lots of little things, and the ambiguity, I think, is what sets this one apart.
Definitely. Almost, I put it up there with like The Thing, John Carpenter's The Thing at the end of where you don't know whether McCready or Charles is the thing. Maybe that's a bit too much. I'm going to retract that statement.
Yeah, I was going to say.
No. The most ambiguous ending of a film is John Carpenter's The Thing, and that always will be maintain the crown, is the champion, it's got the trophy. This is up there.
Yeah.
But not at that level.
Yeah. Yeah, I really wouldn't mind seeing a remake one day. That'll make it a little bit more ambiguous at the ending anyway, I think. Or at least something in this wheelhouse. Maybe not a direct remake, but something close.
You still got to have the angel or the god person coming down with the sword. I mean, you've got to keep that in.
Yeah, you can't redo that scene. That's just too good. Yeah, it's too good. Yeah. That was goofy. Yeah, it was a good one. I'm glad we came to discuss it.
Definitely.
Yeah, so until next time, where can people find you?
You can find me on YouTube at Horrible, where I do mostly indie gaming playthroughs. I've also got 2 books out which you can find on Amazon. That's Birthday Treat and Catbox and Other Strange Tales.
Very nice. Cool. That was a good one. Thanks for taking time.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah. So we'll have to decide what to do next. but until next time, we'll talk to everyone soon.
Bye.